Hey guys, it's Shadow the Rat, and today, unfortunately, I have some bad news because my sweet girl Butter has passed away. So, for those of you who don't know, Butter was my nearly 26-month-old dwarf rat, and she was dealing with a pituitary gland tumor, which we started treating, I'm going to say about 2.5 weeks ago. And she was doing okay on treatment. She wasn't responding fully, but she had regained most of her normal behaviors and abilities. Like, she went from not being able to grip food in her hands to being able to hold it normally. She regained her balance. She was jumping between ledges and exploring, and generally she was pretty much normal, with the exception of her having a very slight, I'd say, like cognitive deficit. I don't know how to explain it, but basically she was just a bit off. But her quality of life was still quite high, and so I decided to keep treating her because, well, she had shown some pretty major improvements on meds. And even if she never fully got back to like 100% normal, I'd say she was like 95% normal, which, you know, is still, again, a very good quality of life. So yeah, she was doing pretty well, all things considered. However, I did have a strong suspicion that she was only responding to one of the meds that she was on, prednisone, which is a steroid, instead of the other medication she was on, cabergoline, which could potentially actually shrink the pituitary gland tumor. But unfortunately, the problem is that not every type of pituitary gland tumor is a prolactinoma, so the rat's tumor won't always respond to it. Anyways, like I was saying, Butter did okay on meds, and she did show a lot of improvement. However, because she didn't show 100% improvement, that's what made me think that she was probably only responding to steroids and not cabergoline. Because my experience with cabergoline has been that rats that respond to it, they go back to completely normal. Like, you won't see them be kind of off. They will seem like a completely normal rat, and if you weren't giving them medication, you would not know that something's wrong with them. So honestly, I suspected that Butter was probably only responding to the steroids and that her tumor is probably still growing. And unfortunately, that is what ended up being the case. And when that happens, pretty much all you can do in rats is to keep treating them with steroids and upping the dose as much as possible, well, as much as is safe, to keep inflammation as low as possible. And depending on how fast the tumor grows, that can give you a few days or a few weeks, but rarely any more than that, because the tumor is still growing, and pituitary gland tumors, in rats at least, tend to grow fairly quickly. So because Butter wasn't showing 100% improvement, I did suspect that she was just responding to steroids and that she would probably only have a few weeks. But again, her quality of life was quite high, so I wanted to keep trying treatment because, well, I mean, she was doing well on them, so might as well keep trying, right? And of course, if Butter started to go downhill, I would have brought her in to be euthanized. Anyways, that brings me to what happened with Butter, because yesterday I came to check on the rats. I had recently separated out Butter, her sister Toast, and my older dwarf Tater Tot into their own little group in the horizontal double critter nation that I have at the top of my cage. And the reason I did this was because, well, my younger girls, Popcorn and Tofu, had started to bully Butter some. Maybe they knew that, you know, she was starting to decline, or maybe they were just going after her because she was a weaker member of the group. Honestly, I don't know. But I didn't feel like it was fair on Butter to leave her with them, so I went ahead and separated off the top third of my cage and put Butter, her sister, and my other dwarf girl Tater Tot up there, because I knew both Tater Tot and Toast would not bully Butter, because both those girls are very mellow and chill. But yeah, I put them up there, and so I was just going to check on them, and I noticed that Butter seemed to be a little bit less enthusiastic about treats than usual. Like, she had a pretty reduced appetite initially with the pituitary gland tumor, but as she responded to the steroids, she started to regain her appetite, and she was not completely back to normal, but pretty close. So when I offered her some yogurt, I expected her to be pretty excited about it, but she wasn't super interested. Like, she did come out of her hide for it, but she only took a few licks of it and then just didn't want it. So that was a little concerning, but then I offered her some sunflower seeds, and those were in their shells, and even though they were in their shells, Butter had no problem opening them up and eating them. So I thought that she was doing pretty well, and maybe she was just a bit tired, because I usually don't come to see my rats at that time. So I kind of let that be, and a few hours later, I came down to give Butter her nightly medication, and to let my other rats out to free range. Well, to let all my rats out to free range because Butter was free ranging too. And when I took Butter out, I realized that she was not doing well. She was a lot more limp than she had been earlier. She was still able to walk, but clearly was having more difficulty with it than before. She seemed to be squinting more, and she just didn't seem as aware as she was before. And I tried to offer her some treats, and she did not want them, any of them. So because of that, I didn't want to give her medication because I didn't want her to aspirate on it. So I decided to basically just monitor her. But at that point, honestly, I knew that she was likely going to pass. Because not only was she acting quite a bit off, but her body temperature was also a bit low. I mean, you could actually feel that it was lower than usual, which is never a good sign with any animal, but especially with small animals like rats. Once their body temperature starts to dip, you're in real trouble. So I took Butter out and let all my other rats out for free range, and I had Butter cuddled in my lap, and that did warm her up quite a bit. But unfortunately, it was very clear at that point that she was passing away. She didn't seem to be panicking or really aware. Her eyes were no longer responding when I shined a light in them, so I'm not even sure if she was aware at all. She just seemed completely out of it. And then over the next, 30 minutes to maybe an hour, I noticed that Butter slowly just stopped moving around, and then she kind of slid over on her side, and then she just stopped breathing, and that was it. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say. Butter's passing definitely was earlier than I was hoping. As a dwarf rat, she should have lived at least 30 months if we were going to hit the average, and she was only just under 26 months, so still a few months shy of that average. But obviously an average doesn't mean that an individual is going to hit that milestone. And even with Butter not quite hitting the average for dwarfs, she did at least get 2 years with me. Well, nearly 2 years, which would have been May 31st. But even with her not quite hitting that average and not quite living as long as I was hoping for, Butter still had a pretty long life for a rat. Anything over 2 years, at least with my standards, I've considered really good. And while I've had much fewer dwarfs, I'd say that I'm still pretty happy that, Butter at least had nearly 2 years with me. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to let you guys know what happened with Butter. And I have one more video with her in it. It's a cage tour video that I just hadn't gotten around to editing yet, so I'll probably be posting that soon. But otherwise, unfortunately Butter is gone, but I will continue to remember her and honor her memory with the rest of my rats, and that's, I think, pretty much the best thing I can do for her. But yeah, I will see you guys later. Bye!